Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're getting around the table to bounce ideas around, doing some blue sky thinking and running ideas up a flagpole to see who salutes them. Cliches.
Hello.
Hello. That sounds like we're all hooked up okay, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Yeah, good work. I can hear you all loud and clear. How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, good, thank you. You?
Good. Yeah, no, I'm all right.
Sorry, I'm 2 minutes late.
Well, yeah, I was waiting because I know how upset you get when if I log in 10 seconds later than you anticipate. I know how nasty you can get about it.
Don't get all passive aggressive with me. I was making a lasagna. If it's got anything to do with you, which I don't believe it has.
It hasn't, no, but it sounds delicious. I wanted to talk about cliches and sayings.
Oh, great.
Oh, well, it's something I've wanted to talk about for a while, really, because sometimes I get very irritated by them, and sometimes I use them perhaps when I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But
we'd be able to run some up a flagpole and see who salutes them.
Well, yeah, that's one of those cliches. I think perhaps I know you and I sort of fell out of love with the corporate world cliches many years ago, didn't we? And so I'm quite aware that having run groups for recovering addicts for many years, I can trot them out if I'm not careful. And I quite like to come up with original stuff, but I wanted to have a chat with you about cliches. A cliche, we better just sort of look at what a cliche actually is, really, and how that different, the difference between that and just a saying that can be used quite a lot. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and you might have your own opinion on this. A cliche is like an expression or an idea that becomes overused to the point where it sort of loses its original meaning or effect, or it can become irritating. Especially when perhaps in the past it was a little bit more meaningful or funny.
Yeah,
do you reckon that's it?
Yeah, I think of cliches as being they're a bit tired and lazy, aren't they? It's almost as if you can't come up with anything that really articulates what you're feeling or thinking. So you just reach for something that a million other people have used before, and of course the problem with it is, even if it does really sum up your feeling, nobody really takes it seriously because it's a cliche.
Well, that's why I try and avoid them. I try not to overuse certain sayings. But what I do find I think there's a sort of an excuse for using them sometimes, certainly in the recovery circles where you're running groups and people that are coming to the meetings that are new to the meetings, they may not have heard some of these things that we take for granted sometimes.
Well, I'm waiting with bated breath to hear what some of them are.
Well, no, I have got some of those. I would have discussed with you for sure.
Are in your extensive notes?
Well, no, I just wanted to lay the sort of foundation of what I mean about my own being irritated with myself for using them sometimes, or indeed for hearing them being used. Yeah. But I suppose it goes back, to the corporate world ones we were talking about there. But also I remember, someone I used to know, he used to use cliches all the time. This was in general. In fact, I'll tell you who it was. It was a. I don't know if you actually remember him, but he was the father of one of my first girlfriends that I had, and he used to use cliches all the time. But he expected me to laugh at them every time as well. If I didn't react, he would sort of prompt me and say it again until I sort of chuckled. And I felt I had to chuckle. It's because it was my girlfriend's dad, and it'd be wrong not to.
Oh, that's so awkward. Even the thought of that is awkward.
Well, he used to trot out things like, I believe you, thousands wouldn't.
Oh, no.
Or don't do anything I wouldn't do. And so I had to sort of, oh yeah, that's good, yeah, very funny, yeah, good, yes. Because if I didn't react, it'd say it again, so I would have to do that. And I would have been around about 15, 16 at the time. It was my sort of first real serious girlfriend where I felt it was right to try and impress the potential in-laws, as it were.
So come on, you've got to give me some examples here, because I
will in a minute, but don't push me, all right?
I thought you were going to use a cliche there. I thought you were going to say you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I could have easily have done that, but that would be far too cliched. Now, if you look at, who would you think are the sort of people that use cliches most? What I'm thinking of here is like a footballer being interviewed. Okay.
Oh yeah, game of two halves.
Exactly. Yeah. Take each game as it comes. One game at a time.
We have to get after them early doors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are just the worst, aren't they? And the football managers can fall into that as well. When they get into, you almost know what they're going to say before they open their mouths. Yeah. Which is why it's quite refreshing when you get some people come along that do actually talk a little bit outside of those cliches. They don't use them. They will think a little bit more. Perhaps going back to the Brian Clough days, and Harry Redknapp would be quite good sometimes. And other people come along.
In fairness, Harry Redknapp had his own cliche, which was "We're down to the bare bones."
Well, it wasn't a cliche at that point because he sort of made it up, didn't he? Or he used it.
But he was I suppose he was one of those people who actually created a phrase and made it a cliche because he used it so much.
he did, but I think he had the copyright on it. Really, I always felt. So I think if you invented it, you're quite entitled to use these things for as long as you like.
No, I can't agree with that. I think even if you come up with a phrase, if you use it so extensively that it becomes a sort of catch-all phrase every time you find yourself even moderately in a situation, then I think you're guilty of creating your own cliche.
I think you're probably right because it goes back to what I was saying at the start there. Once it becomes irritating, it loses its appeal, doesn't it? And you should move on from that. You're right.
Yeah.
It sort of reminds me a little bit. We talked about the corporate world just a minute ago, and how dreadful some of those things they used to say to us were. And it reminds me a little bit, in The Office, the UK version of the original version of The Office.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I think it was one of the episodes in the first series when they had a training day.
Oh yeah.
Which was just fabulous. It was out of all of the. Every episode was brilliant, but that one was truly outstanding because it reminded me. Do you remember they brought this guy in, an outside consultant, to come in and do some motivational work with the staff.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that and cringing, and I really felt for Tim, who was played by Martin Freeman in The Office there, how he got so bored, and how in the end it drove him to sort of get up and walk out the room and hand in his notice and said, I just can't do this one moment further. And I think that was summed up by Ricky Gervais in an interview much later on when he's talking about the making of The Office, and he said that he'd made Tim into the character where he was like a satisfied Socrates or an unsatisfied Socrates in a room full of satisfied fools. And I hadn't heard that phrase before, and I really liked it. So, but that, which is, to me, that was the other end of cliche. It's a saying which I hadn't heard, but summed up that situation perfectly. And so I've had to be careful. The reason I wanted to talk about cliches because I think some sayings do fall into that category of summing up something very perfectly, and some do become overworked and overused. And in the recovery community, and certainly in the meetings that I'm involved in, we can be guilty sometimes of overusing a phrase. But as I say, if it's falling on fresh ears, sometimes it can still be useful.
I still feel like you're teasing me. You haven't given me any phrases yet. I'm waiting here with my mouth hanging open for a cliche from the recovery community.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll tease you with the first one then. It's one that we trot out quite a lot when someone comes into recovery. They're in early recovery and they still continue to go back to the pub and engage in their old ways. And we think that they're playing for pretty fast and loose with their recovery. And they to emphasise this point about continually going back to the pub, we always say that if you go to the barbers enough, you'll end up getting a haircut. Now, which is a cliche we use all the time. To people outside of the recovery community, they may not have heard it or may not think it's a cliche. So it just depends who's receiving that, I think, sometimes, to how that is perceived.
Yeah, two things there. Firstly, presumably you're aware you've used that very phrase in this podcast.
I have, yes.
Yeah. So that was the first thing. The second thing, it was interesting what you just said, because I'd written down on my bit of paper here that for me, the real problem with a cliche is that it betrays a sort of a disrespect for your audience. You're not really thinking about your audience when you're using a cliche. You should be thinking of something that will connect with them rather than something that's been used thousands of times before and therefore probably won't really resonate very effectively. But the thing about that phrase, that if you go to the barber's enough, you'll get a haircut, which is ironic for you, isn't it, at the moment?
No, it is. I wanted to use that one first because it resonates with me because, I'd be desperate to go to the barber's at the moment and get a haircut. When I was just setting up this or waiting for you to ring through with the meeting details for this podcast, I was just looking, setting my phone up on selfie mode. I was looking at myself and I thought, I'm starting to look like Ricky Tomlinson, with my hair's getting longer, my beard's getting longer. Which is not a bad thing, I suppose. But
no, yeah, I was thinking you've got a bit of the Dave Lee Travis about you now.
Well, no, that would be an absolute insult, and I'd have nothing to do with that. I'd shave my own head off in that case.
You are the hairy cornflake.
And that is a cliche.
I was just thinking, it must be, in some ways, quite heartening to see that you can still grow such an impressive head of hair at your advanced years.
Well, it's sort of patchy, but yeah, it's. I mean, where it is growing, it's pretty thick. Yeah, it's outrageous.
Anyway, why we shouldn't be talking about hair?
No, we should. We do it every time for some reason. We drift onto that over the last few episodes.
Because it's quite funny. Oh, you'll be able to go to the barber's on Saturday, won't you?
If that's when the 4th of July is, then yes. But I imagine the queues can be around the block, aren't they?
Yeah. It'd be great to go down to the local hairdresser, see all the people queuing up and their various hairstyles.
I know. There's probably
look like a 1970s edition of the Sweeney.
Yeah, it will. Certainly it would. But without any... Yeah, I think the 70s did certainly lack a bit of style, and I think we've grown back into that at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, well, it fitted the 70s. Anyway, the thing about that cliche, if you go to the barber's enough, you'll end up getting a haircut. I imagine that with people who are new into recovery, that's not a cliche, is it?
That's what I'm saying. That was sort of my opening gambit to all this, wasn't it? Some of the phrases that are used, they're falling onto ears that haven't heard it before.
Do you think other people in the group, so people who are sort of older hands at recovery, do you think they have a bit of a smirk at it when they hear it?
Probably. I used to get smirked at when I think again I've talked about it in the past when I used to talk about the fertile void.
You can't make the fertile void a cliche.
No, well, yeah. So I kept talking about it, and people used to nick it at me a little bit for it. But again, to someone coming new into the recovery community, it was very relevant.
Yeah, it's that. So in a sort of microclimate, that had become a cliche for you, constantly talking about the fertile void.
Yeah.
So do you think that when people were kind of laughing at you, calling you Martin Fertile Void, which is what you said they called you, do you think there is there a kind of more serious message in that, which is that if you continue to use that same phrase, actually you begin to lose people?
Yeah, I do. Well, I think it starts to lose its potency. Certainly, I mean, I did stop using it for quite some time until until there's fresh ears for it to fall on.
I suppose the thing that we're debating here is whether sometimes the language you use, however accurate it is, can lose people if they've heard it too many times.
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Cliches. One could argue that cliches for a reason because they're accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think the problem with cliches is about their accuracy. I think the problem with cliches is that if someone's tired of something, then the likelihood is they're going to stop listening to it.
Yeah,
it's like it's not a cliche, but you'll have met many people. You'll have many people that you come into contact with that have probably been told by their friends and family for years that they've got to stop drinking. Well, yeah, you can hear that. Once you've heard it once, you've heard it 20 times, 30 times, 50 times. It doesn't make any difference. And in fact, I would argue, I mean, you'll put me straight on this if this is wrong, but once you've heard it 30 times from someone, you're almost getting a bit resentful that they keep saying it, aren't you? So it actually begins to have the opposite impact rather than the one that was originally intended. And I think that's the danger of any sort of cliche or hackneyed phrase.
Yeah, it is. I think, you start to resent it, don't you? And you do switch off, you'll filter it out, so it won't have any impact. Which again, the language that you use, we have to use in groups, has to be different from those people that are fresh in and those people that have been in and perhaps lapsed and started again and going through the same things, because a lot of people will know these cliches themselves. They'll know all the phrases that are used and understand them. And obviously it hasn't worked from the past if they've lapsed and they've come back into groups. So you have to go with it with a bit of renewed vigour.
I just want to say that this conversation is making me think about a kind of broader concept around cliche statements, which is cliche behaviour.
Yes.
And that has a similar impact, I think, on people. When something's been done over and over and over again, you think, oh, for God's sake, it starts to really wind you up. And I'll tell you the cliche behaviour that really I cannot stand is, on a television programme, if it's competitions where someone gets kicked out every week, Bake Off or Great British Sewing Bee or Pottery Throwdown or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's and the person leaving us this week is, there's this great long pause and you think, oh, for God's sake, why are you doing that? It's, the first time it was done, there was dramatic effect. But now it's been done 7,000 times. We're just all getting flipping irritated with it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
Talking about cliches, Dave, making me angry. I was quite serene and peaceful before this started.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that pregnant pause on when they're kicking people out of competitions, because I don't know, I can't remember which competition did it first, but it seems to have become the norm now. You're absolutely right. And the pregnant pause becomes longer and longer, and it becomes less and less dramatic, if anything. Yeah. But as you say, it just becomes annoying.
Yeah, it annoyed me.
But, yeah, good. Well, I'm glad I've ruffled your feathers a little bit. I can see your anger in your face and in your eyes. I like that. Some of the other things that we hear, which again, it's quite good sometimes if you hear it for the first time, are the one we use sometimes, if you find a path with no obstacles, it probably doesn't lead anywhere.
So there's sometimes the thing about a statement which is cliched is it's almost so obvious that it's a waste of time making the statement, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Really.
In a funny sort of way, I quite like that one. I think it's quite a. I don't know if I necessarily particularly like the way that it's said, but I think the message is a really important one. In life generally, but particularly in recovery, you expect it to be tough sometimes, and if it isn't tough, you might not be going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's taking, if you take the path of least resistance, often that can just lead you back to where you started. So I think there is value in some of these, but the one that comes up all the time, which is one day at a time, which we use every meeting you'll go to that people are just coming to recovery and say we've got to take this one day at a time. Yeah,
I mean that one. I mean, obviously, I don't know what it's like to be on the receiving end as a recovering addict. But there's something about one day at a time which is kind of eternally powerful. There are various, there are variations, aren't there, of that? There's like you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, which in my game is very much a cliche. But there isn't a better way of saying it.
No, that's why I have this problem in my head sometimes, because I feel myself saying them because I think they're useful, and then I'll pull myself up saying to myself, have I overused that phrase, or is it still relevant? But that one, it's sort of related to small steps forward are still steps, which we use as well.
God, I wouldn't even be able to say that. I don't think it's like around the ragged rock, the ragged rascal ran. It tells on the seashore.
It's a little bit of a tongue twister.
Red yellow lorry. Peter Pecker pickle pepper. Where's the pecker pickle pepper Peter Popper picked?
Yeah, I wouldn't attempt that one. Or another one I quite like, which I only started to think, I'd heard it a few times, but I'm not sure it falls into cliche just yet. But it's a saying that a smooth sea never made a good sailor, which I quite liked.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same as if you follow a path with no obstacles, the likelihood is it isn't going to lead anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I wanted to say it then, because it's sort of it's almost like a reworking. So you can rework some of these old ideas, can't you, with new phraseology?
Yeah, the thing is, I think there's a danger of worrying about using cliche and thinking that because something is used a lot, because it's said a lot, it is necessarily should be avoided. And I'm not sure that's true. I think just because something's used a lot doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't continue to use it. There are certain ways of saying things, they really hit the spot. And I don't think we should be afraid of using those.
Good. Okay. Well, you're starting to put my mind at rest, because I've been pulling myself up and saying, oh, I know, perhaps I'm not putting enough effort in to look at other ideas, etc. But I think that, generally speaking, a lot of them still make sense.
I think the thing that we probably most need to be careful of, rather than using cliched phrases, is our little vocal tics, the little things that we do that we might be a little bit unaware of, but other people will notice, because do you know the sort of things I mean? So when you see someone being interviewed, when people are talking about something, they say, that is much more destructive and off-putting, I think, for people than when we use cliches. What do you think of that one?
Oh, I think it's very good. I do think it's very good, and I think that you're making me a little bit self-conscious now to make sure that I never do this, fall into that category.
What is your vocal tic? You've got one.
I have, and I kept trying to think about what it is, because I've listened back to some of our old episodes, and there is a phrase I kept using at one time, and I can't remember what it is now.
It's a word that you use a lot.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me then, because I can't remember.
Yeah, the word that I notice you use, and it is etc.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, I didn't even realise that myself.
Etc.
Etc. Yeah. But now you've told me, so I'm going to be very, very self-conscious about it.
No. I don't think it will make you self-conscious. I think you'll probably notice yourself using it, and then it's only when we're conscious of something that we can kind of watch how we use it and how often it comes up, because we've all got them.
Well, rolling on from that, what about mistakes are proof that you're trying? That's one which we you like that one?
Yeah, very much. I think I'm totally on board with that one.
Yeah, I think it's quite a nice one, and I think that it's one which we use again when people are coming back in after they've had a lapse or a relapse, or whatever you want to call it. I think it can be quite.
Funny
nice
enough, I use a version of that. I've probably overused a version of that same saying, which is, the man who never failed never achieved anything.
Yeah, see, that was one that my dad used to use all the time.
Oh, well, perhaps I got it from him. Did he also? Did he follow it up with the story of Thomas Edison?
No.
I always follow it up with the story of Thomas Edison, because I work with a lot of people, as you can imagine, who are terrified of failing, and the consequence of that is they never do anything. And so I always say to them, Edison, who I think I'm right in saying invented the light bulb, he tried, I don't know, hundreds of different prototypes before he eventually succeeded. And his friends used to say to him, Thomas, why don't you just give it up? You've failed at this about 240 times. And he would say to them, no, I haven't failed. I've just found 240 ways it doesn't work. Failure is all about your mindset, isn't it? It's all about whether you're concentrating on what hasn't worked, or you're actually just trying to chart a path towards what does.
Yes, I think, if going back to the start and about cliches, etc., I think it just becomes.
You said etc. You said etc.
Did I?
Yeah.
See, I don't even know. Can you edit that out?
There you go.
Well, perhaps it's a comfort word when I'm trying to drag you back on track. That's why I use it so much.
Oh, I thought it'd be my fault.
It is, definitely.
It's a bit of responsibility.
I'm an addict. I don't do that. I can't remember where I was now. Going back to the start. I think that some of the cliches we use or the sayings we use tend to be limited to the industry we're working in or the surroundings we're in. So I think that, although, you will have your own set of cliches, won't you? Your own set of words. You probably find yourself trotting out time and time again to different people, even though that they may have slightly different needs and requirements. There's probably a set of core phrases that you use, in which I think
tell me about your childhood.
Exactly, yeah, that's what you guys do, isn't it? Yeah, sit down and relax. Tell me about your childhood. It's all rooted there. When I was researching this, I was looking on various places, various websites, and there's one website that And it gave you a list of 681 cliches to avoid in your creative writing. I thought, my God, and there's so many of them. They put them in alphabetical order. And I was reading through them, and I thought, if I took this into account, I'd never write another blog again, that's for sure, because there'd be nothing left.
I expect I'm falling foul of most of them every week.
Well, it's an interesting one to have a look at, but it can make you very self-conscious.
What's your favourite?
I'd probably say that addiction is an equal opportunities destroyer, which I quite like, which we use to give, when people are coming into groups, because they feel that certainly the way I felt when I went into groups, that everyone in addiction was going to be the same, sort of a downtrodden person living, under the bridges down by the river at Maidstone. But it isn't. You go into recovery and there's people from all walks of life in there. So I quite like that one. And that real recovery is a complete lifestyle change, which I think is really important. I don't think that's a cliche. I think it's almost philosophical. I think it's real, and you really do have to take that into account. So that's about it, really.
I suppose when you come into recovery, if you've come into recovery after a long time, and then you start on a path of sustainable recovery, one could really describe your life as a game of two halves.
It is. It is really a game of two halves. But you got to take advantage in the first half. You got to strike early.
Yeah,
you got to get your men behind the ball.
Yeah,
you got to keep your shape.
And actually, I think you probably want to stay away from the phrase early doors, because I imagine that must refer to pubs.
Oh, I imagine it probably does. Yeah.
Well, that's very good. I've enjoyed that little wander around the world of cliche. I was trying to think of one to finish with, but I can't think of one.
Nothing is so bad that a drink won't make it worse.
That's very good.
Look for progress, not perfection. You see, I could wheel a load of them out if you wanted me to.
Okay, well, I'm going to go and finish my lasagna, and I'll speak to you soon.
Good, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to see what music you put to this one as well, because I was trying to think of what I would do, and I haven't really come up with anything firm. Because I think,
to be honest, it's not going to be difficult, is it? This one, because I can go for anything cliche. I'd just go for a cliche song. Well, as an example, I mean, obviously, I won't do this, but I could do "Hi Ho Silver Lining," couldn't I? Because they've even got signs up in music shops to say, "Please, no Stairway to Heaven." I could do "Stairway to Heaven."
That is very cliche. You're right. Yeah. Well, you could do anything with a sort of a 12-bar riff to it. It'd be like me. I used to go to 12 bars.
Yeah, in one night. Yeah.
One night. Take it easy. I'll speak to you soon.
See you later.
Laters.
Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on our Facebook page, Sideways Podcast. And you can email us to let us know what you think of the show, or with anything else that you'd like to ask us. Finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week. Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Oh, I feel a bit sick.